to Module 20.1. Before we dive into the product evaluation spreadsheet, I just want to cover a very important metric when I'm evaluating products to sell on Amazon, and it's called ROI. We all know we have to make a profit. That's kind of a given, and profit margins on Amazon as an FBA seller typically range between about 20 and 30%. There's gross profit, there's net profit, there's different ways to calculate profits and different types of profits. But ROI is a very simple number. It's profit divided by your investment. And it's not just the investment in the actual product, but it's the investment to actually sell the product. So it can include your PPC costs. It can include if you have to do a trademark. It can include any other cost, the shipping costs, any duties or taxes. That's part of the investment that you're having to put out of your pocket. It's not just what it costs you to make the product in China or India or wherever you're making it. So it includes everything. ROI, the reason it's so important is because this is going to determine how fast you can grow. You hear stories sometimes of people that start with a few $1,000s and they grow it into a 50,000, 100,000 or more company. And one of the ways they're able to do that is by focusing on ROI. Because to grow your company, you're going to need money. And to grow from a little bit of money into a lot of money in this business, you're going to need money. So you're going to have to take outside investment, or you have terms with your suppliers, or something is going to have to happen. There's no such thing as starting with a couple $100 and without any outside money, or which could be, like I said, in the terms of terms from a supplier or investment or loans or whatever. You can't grow that into millions of dollars. But one of the things that determines how fast you can grow without having to take as much outside capital, and maybe even minimize the amount of outside capital you take at all, is ROI. And so we're going to be walking through a spreadsheet, and this is a very important number when I'm evaluating potential products to sell on Amazon. I like to have an ROI of at least 100%. 150% is better. Now, can you sell products that have less than that? Yes, you can sell products that have less than that, and you can make money doing that. And a lot of people do. But it's going to constrain you. It's going to keep you from growing as fast as you could and from maximizing your potential. So I just want to emphasize ROI. I pay more attention to that than I do to actual profit, because I can have a product that may have a 30% profit and say a 70% ROI, and I may have another product that has a 25%, a lower profit, but has 160% ROI. So before we dive into the product evaluation spreadsheet, just one other quick note is you have another spreadsheet that you can download in this module called the profitability curve. And the point of this spreadsheet is just to demonstrate to you that it's not always about price when selling on Amazon. Now, it is about price if you're not differentiated. If you're just a commodity product and you're just another Me Too product, it's going to be about who has the best price and who has the best reviews. And I don't recommend competing in that area. Where I recommend you compete is actually finding an opportunity, differentiating it, and then creating a good listing with good images and good copy that's going to justify people paying a higher price. That may mean it's better packaging. That may mean it's better quality. That may mean you're bundling something with it. Like if it's a makeup brush, you're including a little bag for it, or if it's a makeup mirror, you're including a little travel size one with it, or something that's going to differentiate it. So a lot of times you can actually sell less and make more on Amazon. And so that's the point of this spreadsheet. And so let's just say, for example, you wanted to sell about 20 units per day. So I could go and type 20 right here. And let's say the lowest price you would even consider selling this at is $19.95. And the highest price you're thinking about selling this at is $39.95. And the target price, though, is based on your competition and your research, it looks like something like $28.95 might be probably the best price, but you're not quite sure. That's kind of where everybody else is selling theirs at. So if you want to be competitive on price alone, that's where you may need to be. And let's say on the high side, if you're successful, maybe the top guy is selling 50 a day, let's say, in this example. So what I can do is I can then come in here and I can estimate the number of units I need to sell at different price points and get an idea of where I might want to be. So I can enter this data, and then I can just hit this generate scenario right here, and you can see it's going to spit out this spreadsheet. So for example, if at $28.95, my goal is to sell 20 units. If I lower my price to $19.95, to make the same profit, I'm going to have to sell 29 units. So this is all economics. If you ever took an economics class, it's all about the curve. And so there's like a bell curve here of where you want to be, and you want to be in the sweet spot. If you raise your price and you can actually get sales, let's say all the way to the high price of $39.95, you only need to sell 14 units to make the same profit as you do at selling $28.95. So pricing, you want to test it, and you don't want to just willy-nilly it and just base it on what everybody else is doing. Especially if you create a good product with good differentiation, you can actually come in and a lot of times sell for more. You may have heard me talk about my example in the past of the bully sticks that I sold 3 bully sticks for $50 in a cigar type of box, versus everybody else is selling 30 bully sticks in a plastic bag with a label for $30. So you would think that people would always buy the 30 for $30 versus 3 in a box for $50. And yes, I sold a lot less. My BSR was not nearly as high. I didn't have any problems with hijackers or knockoffs or anything like that. And I was actually making more money. And this is just to illustrate that point, is that think when you're evaluating products, think of how can you justify selling it for more? What can you do to sell it for more? And that's where the spreadsheet will come in and help you. Now, let's take a look at the other spreadsheet, the product evaluation spreadsheet, and go through that one right now. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go through the product evaluation spreadsheet. And this is a spreadsheet that you can download that will help you evaluate product opportunities. And it's pretty detailed, and it might be a little bit confusing at first, but don't worry, you'll get the hang of it. So let's go back to our cornhole game that we were talking about in a previous module. If I type in cornhole game, let's say this is a product that we were considering to actually sell. As I look through here, let's just say for this example, we might want to sell something like this guy right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this guy, some version of this. Maybe we're going to change it up and put some different graphics on here and maybe make it a little nicer case or change the colors, or we're going to do something, but it's going to be kind of similar to this one. So just for evaluation purposes, we're going to actually use this guy for evaluation purposes. So if you scroll down the page, you'll actually see that Amazon will have the actual sizes of this right here. So it has the dimensions of the package. It has the package weight, which is important. The item weighs 25 pounds, but it's a couple pounds for the box and everything. And it has the sizes, as well as a bunch of other information here that we're not going to worry about too much right now. But what I'm going to make note of is that this size is 37 by basically 26 by 5.5. Or if you want to be exact, we'll put the exact 36.9 by 25.9 by 5.5. And the shipping weight, the package weight, is 27.2 pounds when this is shipped out. So it's a pretty heavy item. So what I then might do is go over to Alibaba. Now I'm not going to contact any factories or anything just yet. I just want to get a rough idea of what these things might cost. Cornhole game. Do a search there and see if I can find something similar. Now, I'm not going to go into detail and find like the magic one. I'm just doing a rough product evaluation here. So for this one's kind of like it. Let's see what else. That one looks kind of interesting. Let's see, that one looks kind of interesting. Here, this one. This one's kind of similar to what we're doing. Perfect triangle painting cornhole game for outdoor use. Minimum order is 100 sets. So they have some pricing right here. We're going to talk about more of this in the sourcing modules a little bit later and go into detail about how to really use Alibaba and use stuff for sourcing. But just for our purposes right here, this looks like it's a pretty good quality one. Looks like it might be kind of similar to the one that we were talking about. $50 is probably going to be the price for 100, and when you order a lot more, it may go down to 25. This pricing is just a ballpark. A lot of times when you actually start negotiating, this pricing will be completely different than what's shown right here. But it doesn't matter for our purposes. We just need to get a rough idea. If you already know, if you're running this spreadsheet and you already have contacted the manufacturer or have a good idea, then by all means use the exact stuff that you need. You can see it is 48 by 24 inches. That's probably because it folds out. Let's see what it says the weight is here. These weigh even a little bit more. They even have the carton specs and the gross weight and the net weight right here for you. You could use those numbers as well. Let's see what there's the production time and everything that's going to take. It's 35 to 40 days. So I'm going to make a note of that. 35 to 40 days. The MOQ, which is the minimum order quantity, I only need to order 100. So that's good if I want to start with a little bit lower. It's made out of plywood, so it's pretty good quality. Maybe better quality than some of the plastic ones and the other ones that are on there. So I'm just going to use this one just as a baseline, just to get a rough idea. And I may actually use this supplier, I might use somebody else, but I just need to figure out, is it worth me spending a bunch more time delving into this, or is this just something that's not going to work? I think I found a product on Amazon that looks like there's some good keywords. It looks like there's some good opportunity. It meets a lot of the requirements that I'm looking for, but is it worth really spending more time to delve into it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up now the spreadsheet. And this is the product evaluation spreadsheet that you guys all have. And so I'm going to go in. If you notice down at the bottom, there's a bunch of tabs down at the bottom here. That we're going to fill in as many of these tabs as possible, and it's going to do a lot of calculations for us. So I'm going to paste in the photo of this item right here, just so I have a point of reference. And the ASIN for this particular one, just so I know for future, for the future, if I want to come back to it as I'm doing my product research, is this ASIN right here that we had from earlier. So I'm just going to post that right in there. Oops, the photo goes right here in the photo spot. Description is cornhole game. Now you can see you could keep adding a whole bunch more down here. When you download your spreadsheet, you'll see there's a bunch more fields, so you could have a whole master list here. Now the factory price, when we were looking at Alibaba, I'm just going to go with that price of $25 because I think I'm going to order more than 100 of these. So I'm just going to put, this is an estimate only, $25. And remember we said the one that we saw, you can either use the Alibaba numbers or use the one that was on Amazon. It was 36.9 inches in length, 25.9 wide, and 5.5 inches tall. Remember, this is an imperial. This is in American, not in centimeters or not in millimeters. This is in inches. The weight of this guy, the shipping weight, you want to make sure it's the shipping weight, not just the weight of the product. You got to add extra for the box. Is 27.2. Let's say this one was selling for, I think it was $89. Was it $89? I believe it was selling for. Let's go back up. Yeah, selling for $89.99. So let's just, for argument's sake, let's just say we're going to sell at the same price as this guy. I have an option here to lower my price when I'm launching. Maybe I'm going to give out some coupons. I'm going to do some sort of rebates. I'm going to try to undercut this guy maybe when I launch. We'll talk about that more in the launch section. But let's say to get ranking, I'm going to do a $20 discount. So I'm going to sell these for $69.95 initially, and then later on slowly raise my price up to that $89.99. Now the units I need to rank, I'm going to go back over to X-Ray. And this guy, if I want to sell something, let's go back onto Cornhole Game and do a search for Cornhole Games. And you can come into X-Ray. I'm just going to get a rough number here. And so if I was going to target and try to actually rank for this and be on, let's say the middle of page 1. So that's going to be somewhere around position 9 or 10 here. So around position 9 or 10. These guys are selling, and it looks like sales rank. The sales here is it's going to be about 400 or 500 units probably to just kind of be in this middle of the pack. I might be here, I might be up here, but somewhere in the middle of the pack. So I'm just going to say 500 units. So 500 units divided by 30. 500 units divided by 30, because there's 30 days in most months. It's going to be, what's that, about 16 about 16 units per day, 17 units per day, roughly, 17 units per day. And based on ranking, you're going to need to sell about 17 units per day for about 8 days. Now, right now, I don't know which keywords I'm going to be ranking for. I don't know if it's going to be cornhole game. I don't know if it's going to be what they are. If you know the actual keywords, you can use that real data, and you can get that data from the CPR when you go into Cerebro. We'll talk more about that in another module, but for right now, I'm just going to estimate. So I'm saying I'm going to be in the middle of the pack here. 500 units per month is my target, and divide that by 30. That's about roughly 17. So times that by 8. So 17 times 8 is, what's that? 136, I believe. 17 times 8, yeah, about 136. And so I'm going to need about 136 units to actually rank this product, because I've got to sell the equivalent to get in here. I got to beat this guy right here. I got to beat this guy. These guys are doing really well, but I don't know which keywords they're ranking on. And so until I know exactly which keywords they're ranking on, I can't really dial in the numbers. So right now I'm just guessing. I'm just purely guessing. So the units to rank, what did I say, 136 because I'm going to go after some lower level keywords. I'm not going after the big keywords. The units per master carton. Let's see if on this Alibaba, if they actually told us what they were here. Sometimes they'll tell you. Carrying case, carton. There's the carton size, 122 by 62 by 17 centimeters. Do they say how many are in a master carton anywhere? Doesn't look like they're actually saying how many are in a master carton. So until we know from the manufacturer, we're going to have to just kind of guess right here. We can come back and fill in this data later once we have the actual data. But usually Amazon doesn't want no cartons to have more than 150 pieces and to be over 50 pounds. So 150 pieces or maximum, or 50 pounds. Well, we know that each one of these weighs 27 pounds. So just by putting 2 of them in a master carton, because even without the, I think it was 25 pounds without the packaging, so we're right at that limit. So these are probably going to have to come each in their own box into Amazon. So it's probably going to be 1 unit. It might be 2 per master carton. The sales target per day, remember we said we're going to try to rank, was going to be 17 per day. The manufacturing time, I think that said about 35 days. The shipping time to Amazon, how long is it going to take to get into Amazon? That depends if we're going to do air shipment or if we're going to do sea shipment. Air shipment we'll talk about that in the whole shipping module, go into really in detail in this. It can be anywhere from 4 to 10 days. Sea shipping usually takes about 25 to 35 days. These are a pretty heavy item, so I'm not going to want to ship these by air because it's going to cost me a fortune. It's going to be better to ship these by sea. Air is more for small and lightweight things. So if I'm going to ship this by sea, it's going to let's just say it's going to take about 30 days. The duty and the tariff rate, if there's any kind of duties on this, or tariffs, you're not going to know this right off. Your freight forwarder is someone that you're going to use. We'll talk about this more in the freight forwarding section, so don't worry. You're going to come back to this spreadsheet after you finish more of the modules and really understand this a whole lot better. But I just want to show it to you right now because you need to be thinking about all this kind of stuff. So when you get into the shipping module, you're going to understand how to calculate this and where to get this information. When you get into the launch module, you're going to know better how many units you're going to need to target per day. So, but I need to show you the basics right now, just so you can have this in mind as you're looking for products. So let's say the duty on this is it's coming into the U.S. and because it's a wood product, I don't know what the exact number. Let's just say it's a 5% duty. It could be more, could be less. 5% duty. The payment transfer fees are what you're going to have to pay to your bank to wire money for the payments. Usually there's 2 payments. Usually you're making 1 payment to pay like 30%. And a second payment when everything is ready to pay the remaining 70%. There's ways to save money on this. We talk about that in the shipping modules coming up in a future week. But let's just say your bank charges you $40 per wire transfer, and you have to send 2 of them per order, so that's $80. If you're running a coupon on this, after you've gotten your rank, maybe you're going to decide to run a coupon, you could put something here. I'm going to leave that blank for right now. Your target PPC tacos. Now we'll talk about this a lot more in the PPC modules in one of the last weeks of the course, but most people refer to something called ACoS. It stands for Advertising Cost of Sale, and it's a number that Amazon gives you, and it's expressed as a percentage. So if you spend $1 in ads and you make a sale for $10, that's a 10% ACoS, because 1 times 10 is $10. So that's a 10% ACoS. But what I like to do is use something called tacos. I add a T in front of it, so for total ACoS. And so I'll take what the total ACoS is a number that's based on your overall advertising for all sales. ACoS by itself without the T is just for what's the percentage on just the sales that came from the advertising. It's kind of like a return on ad spend. Versus tacos is, okay, we spent this much in advertising, and we sold this many. Let's assign a value of advertising to every single unit. And that's the big difference. You're assigning a cost of advertising to the organic units that you sell naturally and the ones that you sell through advertising. And a lot of people don't calculate this, and it's a big mistake. If you're running a well-oiled machine, this should be about 5 to 10%. Now your ACoS might be 30, it might be 50, it might be 100%, but your total advertising cost of sale should be around 5 to 10%. So let's just put 8 right here. If you want to be conservative, you could put 10. Your inspection cost is, we'll talk about this again more in the later module. Before you have your product sent over from China or from wherever, you're going to want to have it inspected. A third-party inspection company is going to go and check and make sure everything's okay. There's different services and different fees. You kind of get what you pay for. If you go cheap, you may get cheap inspection. A good one's usually about $200, $250. So let's just put $200 to inspect it. Estimated damage and returns. Now, if you're selling clothing, this is going to be a pretty high number. Something that has sizes, people might send it back quite a bit, because they might buy 2 or 3 of them, see which one looks the best, and send the other 2 back. So you might have 10-15% return rates on clothing. But most products should have about a 2 to 3% average return rate. Some will be 1%. There's going to be some defects. Some customers are just like, they buy it and then they decide they don't want it. Nothing that you did wrong. If you go over 5% and you're not in the clothing category and a few of the others, that's where Amazon doesn't like it. So you always want to keep that under 5%. But I like to just put just an estimate here of about 2% are going to get returned. Then you have any other variable cost. If there's some other expense that you know of that you had to do, maybe you had to, this is not samples or anything like that, but maybe that it costs you $100 to set up your bank account or something like that. You could put that in there. So the next thing the spreadsheet is going to do is going to calculate everything into metric for you. So it's going to change all the inches into centimeters and change your ounces or pounds into kilos. And the reason it does this is when you're talking with your freight forwarder or your supplier, they're often going to want metric terms, versus when you're entering stuff on Amazon.com in the US, it's in imperial terms. So just a convenient little calculation here for you just to give you an idea. And a lot of the shipping rates and everything that we're going to look at later are based on metric. So that's another reason we have to convert it here. The other next column is inventory turns per year. Now the ideal number you want to get here is between 4 and 6. If you can go above 6, that's even great. But the optimal range is 4 to 6. And what does that mean? That means you're turning over your inventory 4 times per year, if it's a 4. Or every 3 months, because there's 12 months in a year, divided by your inventory turn of 4. It means basically every 3 months you're selling through everything you bought. And the reason that's important is for growth and for cash flow. Because let's say the factory has an MOQ of 1,000, and so that's what you order is 1,000. But let's say it takes you 6 months to actually sell those 1,000. Well, that's an inventory turn of 2, because 6 months goes into 12 2 times.
So you're tying up your money, even though you might be making profits and be profitable, you're tying up your money too long. It's better to actually take your money and try to get it back as fast as you can so you can redeploy that money to buy more inventory and to continue to grow. And so that's why this is an important number. Don't worry about it too much when you're running this spreadsheet, if this shows up as a 1 or a 2 or something like that in the beginning, because you remember we're just guessing here. And once you have the real data and the real numbers, once you start selling, you'll be able to come back and make some adjustments to see how you're performing. But this just gives you an idea, just kind of it's a ballpark metric to see where you're at when you're starting. The last column over here is the units needed to rank. And this is going to, by default, enter the data that was right here on the units needed to rank. However, if you've filled in down here on the bottom, you see the long-term bottom line analysis tab. There's on the right-hand side of that tab, there's some places where you can enter your keywords. For example, if you entered, if this is the cornhole, if we entered a backyard game, let's say was one of the keywords that we were going after. And when I looked it up on Helium 10, the CPR, I'm just making these numbers up, let's say it was 25. And then let's say keyword target number 2 was cornhole, just the actual word cornhole. And let's say the CPR on Helium 10 was, again, I'm just making these up, was 100. And then say keyword number 3 was, let's see, beanbag game. Beanbag game. And let's say the CPR on that was, I don't know, I'm just making these up, 200. Well, what this will do is it'll do a calculation here. It'll kind of figure out a rough estimate. Now, this is not dead on accurate because nobody knows exactly how many you got to sell, but this is an approximation, and this could be adjusted up or down. You'll have to, as you're launching your product, we'll talk about that more in later modules. You'll want to adjust this and kind of keep an eye on it when you're launching. But it's going to take somewhere in the neighborhood of 228 sales to actually rank. So what will happen is if you fill this in, if you come back over here to this one, it'll replace it to the 228. So that's what that does. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the next tab down here. Now, one thing I want you to notice is you see these little lock symbols on these. That means you can't modify them. There's certain fields in here if you try to type in, like if I come over here to this inventory turns and I try to type some numbers, I get a message here that says you can't change it. So some of these are locked, and that's done on purpose to make sure nobody accidentally messes up some of these formulas, because what happens, someone will go in here, they'll mess up with a formula, the whole sheet will get messed up. You'll be emailing Helium 10's customer service, or you'll be getting all kinds of weird numbers, and you can make decisions that are completely wrong and not realize you made that mistake. So that's why everything is locked. It's for your protection, to make sure that there's no accidental errors that could make you make a huge wrong decision. And so there are some that are unlocked, like this one on the last one over here, fees is actually unlocked. So you could go in, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute, and change a few things in there. But that's the only one where you kind of have free reign. So the rest of these sheets are locked down. And I'm sorry, but we can't give out the password to unlock those. So that's just not something that we want to do. We want to make sure that everything stays in here in the correct way. All right, so the next one here is initial launch cost. So you see here everything got copied over in these first 3. And I can come here and we're going to go ahead and fill these in. These are costs that are only going to happen when you first launch your product. So these are usually things you're only going to spend money on one time. But we want to go ahead and get an idea here and account for them. So some of these might be zeros, but some of them you may have some costs, but we need to factor those in, because what if we order this product and the only time we ever order this product is this first time? Because for whatever reason we ran out of money, it didn't work, we got some bad reviews. We need to know what we're looking at. What's it going to take to get our money back out so that we don't lose money on this thing? You know, what's the risk factor here? A lot of people don't put these initial costs into their projections. Now, in accounting, you would actually amortize a lot of these out. So if you're ordering 4 times a year, you may amortize these across multiple orders. But for our purposes, we're going to take a look at them as if you're never going to order this again, just to look at a worst case scenario. So the first one here is we have trademarks and legal fees. So let's say you went to sellertrademarks.com, or you use another service to actually go ahead and start the process to get a trademark so that you can get brand registry and some of the other benefits that it brings. And let's just say, for argument's sake, that the filing fees for the government and the service fees, let's say they just cost you $800. Product photos and graphic design. This might be, really, really cheap if you're trying to do this yourself, which I don't recommend. Or if you're using one of the services that are out there, there's plenty of services that will do this type of stuff for you. Sometimes you can have it done in China. Other times you can have it done in the U.S. We'll talk about that in one of the later modules. I'll even make a couple recommendations on some people that you might want to use. But let's just say, for argument's sake right now, this cost us $500. Logos and package design. Maybe you went onto Fiverr with 2 R's, or Upwork.com, and you found someone that a freelancer that can create a really cool logo for you, maybe do a nice little package design, and let's say that cost maybe a couple $100 for all that. And remember, this is things you're only going to have to spend money on one time, because you can keep using that package, keep using that logo over and over and over on future orders, unless you want to change it for some reason. You may decide you want to do a little update or a modification or something, but that it might cost you a little bit down in the future. But we're just putting here what the initial might be. Website setup could be things like registering at GoDaddy or one of the other registrar services, maybe setting up some hosting on a WordPress site or on Bluehost or something like that, just to get your basic website up. That might cost, let's say, I don't know, $100 or so to do all that. If you got molds and samples, molds are where you actually are creating something brand new, and the factory has to make all the, basically like the patterns and everything. I usually don't recommend you do that on your first product. That's something that you want to do after you kind of figured out exactly how this whole thing works. But a lot of times you've had to order samples from the factory, and a lot of times they don't charge you for samples, but they charge you for the shipping. And the shipping, it can be expensive. You're like, holy cow, I'm selling a $3 item and they just charge me $70 for a sample. Are they insane? No, that's just how it works. That's the FedEx or DHL's charges, and they want to make sure you're serious, because so many people will often contact the factories and say, hey, I'm interested in your product, can you send me a sample? And if they did that, they'd just be sending out free products all day long. So they typically charge a little bit higher fee for the sample, and a lot of times if they don't charge a fee, they're at least going to charge you the shipping. So let's just say we got some samples from different factories, 2 or 3, 4 different factories. It costs $150. Now the next one's your initial PPC test. This is your pay-per-click test or sponsored ads on Amazon. This one, I usually recommend you spend between $300 and $500 set aside, so when you first launch your product, you're going to be running some ads to make sure that Amazon sees your product in the right way, to kind of get an idea of which keywords people are typing and actually buying off of. You're usually going to lose all this money. You're going to have you're kind of throwing it down the drain because you just need some data, and you need it straight from the horse's mouth, not from different tools. Even as good as the tools are, a lot of times it's just not coming straight from the horse's mouth. And so let's say you set aside $300 for that. Your launch services fees, these would be fees for if you're getting someone to help you launch your product. It could be one of the services that will run chatbots for you, like ManyChat. They'll run Facebook ads and then use chatbots. They could be one of the rebate services that actually will get people's products in your hands and do rebates. It could also be one like the early review program, which is we'll talk about that in a later module. It's like $60. It could be Vine. It could be a number of things. But I'm just going to put here, and this is going to say for right now, I'm going to say $500. You may not know what it is. I'm just guessing. You can always come back and adjust this stuff. Social media ads. Maybe you're going to run a few little ads in a Facebook group, or try to get a few little sales or something, or maybe you're going to have zero. You're not going to do this. You're going to job that out. But I'm just going to put, I'm just going to spend $250 to run some little ads when my product first comes out, to announce it and stuff. And we'll talk about that later and what you should do there in one of the launch modules. But I'm just going to throw a little number in there right now. And other setup costs, these are something that's not mentioned here. Maybe you have some other expense that is not in this standard list. And this is where you would enter it. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a 0 in that one for right now. So remember, these, you can adjust these later, because maybe right now you're just kind of guessing, and once you get into this and start getting deep into the product, you're going to see that, wow, man, my logo and package design is not going to be $200, it's going to be $250. So you could just come back here and change this and then get an updated view of what you're looking at once you get more specifics. But this is just a good starting point to get you going. And some of these, you may decide, I'm not doing a trademark. I'm going to hold off on that. I don't have the budget for that. So that might be a 0. You're going to wait to make sure the product works or something. So this is all flexible here. There's no right number or no right answer, but these are just some starting points in this example. All right, the next one, we're going to go to the next tab down here, the third tab, shipping cost to Amazon. So this is going to do some calculations for you. There's something called CBM. That's basically how much volume is this going to take, and these are pretty big items, so it's going to take quite a bit of volume, and that number then is used to calculate how are you going to ship this over, how many of these big metal boxes, what's called containers. There's 20-foot containers, there's 20-foot HQs, which means there's 40-foot and 40-foot HQs. The HQs have a little bit more space to them, they're a little bit bigger, but we just do the standard 20 and 40 here in our calculation. Later you could get more technical and more in depth and go into the other sizes. But for our purposes here, we'll just use these. So it will use this volume and this weight, and it'll figure out here how many containers are you going to need. So based on what we just said of the 17 units per day, and you'll see exactly in a minute when we get to one of the other tabs, it's going to show you how many you should order from the factory. But you're going to basically be filling up if you ship these in 20-foot containers, you're going to be filling up almost 6 of them, because every 100% is a container. So we're at 590%. So this is almost 6 20-foot containers, which is, or if you put them in the bigger containers, you're at almost 3, a little bit shy of 3. So that'll give you an idea of when you're talking to your freight forwarder and they say, okay, what are you bringing over? And you say, I got 3 40-foot containers I'm going to be bringing over. All right, great. Let's figure this out. The next one is your air shipping estimate. Now this is $4 per kilo. This is during normal times, but there's times of the year like around the holidays, Christmas time especially, or if there's a pandemic, for example, these rates can skyrocket. So this is pulled from this last one here. Remember I said there's one of these that down here on the bottom, these tabs you can change. It's the fees. So these fees it'll show you the latest updated date. And when at the time of this recording, it's February 18th. It was the last time that Amazon made these changes. When you're watching this, they may have made some more changes. I'll normally go in and I will update the spreadsheet when they make changes, so you'll see, make sure you're paying attention to what version of the spreadsheet you're using, and see if there's a later version, or you can go in here and change these yourself if you want to. But you'll see right over here on the far right, it says ship by air $4 per kilo. But let's say you're selling this during a pandemic time, when every plane in the world is full and FedEx and all those guys are charging, $20 per kilo. You could change that right here to 20, and then if you come back over here to the shipping cost, you see here it'll change it here for you. So you have some flexibility to change these. Just be very careful in what you do, because it can make some big differences. But you might need to change these, because things can change from time to time. Maybe there's a big strike. The shipping by sea is not going to be 60. Now there's a big strike at the ports, and this is 100. So give you some flexibility to change this. And then it's got a whole bunch of other calculations in here for the storage fees, for approximate estimates. If you're going to be shipping this by UPS from a 3PL, all your weights and dimensions. So these are some calculations that the rest of the spreadsheet uses. So try not to mess with them if possible, but if you have to, you can modify these, or if maybe Amazon updates these fees, and the new spreadsheet hasn't been uploaded and you're anxious to go, you can come in here and modify these if you need to, but I recommend you try to stay out of here as much as possible. But so back on our shipping cost, let's put this back to normal times instead of right now. Let's put this back to $4. And we have our estimate per CPM for freight for coming by sea, which is a slow way, but it's almost always going to be cheaper. You're going to have some fees and brokerage charges from your broker. They're going to charge you fees for like sending an overnight package, for releasing the bill of lading, it's a bunch of BS fees. You're going to have some fees. So these are just estimates. Yours might be lower or higher depending on your broker, but they're just estimates. You got for sea and for air. These are your prep fees. So maybe you're sending everything into a 3PL and you're asking them to bundle. Maybe your product is getting bundled with, you have a toothbrush and you're bundling it with some toothpaste, and they need to put them together and shrink wrap them together. That would be an example of bundling. Or maybe in this case, obviously we don't have bundling because we have our corn bag thing with the bean bags in it. But maybe you're going to let Amazon do the labeling. You're not going to put an FN SKU or a barcode on your packaging. So Amazon's got to put something on it. And as of right now, they're charging 30 cents to do that for you. So if that's the case, you're going to have to put that in here as 30 cents if you're going to let Amazon do that. A lot of times you can print your FN SKU, or you can print the barcode straight on your packaging or on the label. But some people, they don't do that, or maybe they're in a rush and they order from the factory and they don't have time to do that. Just realize Amazon's going to have to do something for you. There are some exceptions to that, but in most cases, they're going to have to do it for you, and they're going to charge you 30 cents a unit to do it, or maybe more. They might change this fee and raise that, but that's what it is right now. This is your UPS if you bring it into a 3PL, it's just an estimate of what it would cost to ship this product to 3 different warehouses. Because if you bring this in, let's say your 3PL, your main warehouse is in California. Well, when you ship into Amazon, let's say that warehouse is storing 1,000 units for you. When you make an order to send into Amazon, you tell Amazon, okay, I'm going to send in 200 units. Amazon's system is going to tell you, well, send 60 of them to Pennsylvania, 40 of them to Ontario, Canada, and 100 of them to Dallas, just for example. I mean, it could be all over the place. So you have to split these up into 3 different warehouses. Sometimes you get lucky and it's all to one place. And there's ways to actually make that happen where you pay an extra fee, and we'll talk about that in a later module. But this just is just a rough estimate of what it might cost you per unit if you have to do that. So we want to have that in there. So your air freight total per unit, if you send these by air, in this example, is almost $50. And that's crazy. You're paying $50 per unit to get it over here. That's because they weigh a lot, they take up a lot of space. So it's probably something you're not going to want to air freight, because the sea freight's only about $6 a unit. So that's a lot more absorbable on a product like this one. Now, some things that are really light and small, you could maybe get away with air freight, but something that's bigger, most times you're going to want to come by sea. And this will just tell you that it's the cheapest ones, obviously, $5.99. And so your total sea landed cost per unit is $38.89. Landed cost means the cost to pay the factory, if there's any duties or taxes, and the shipping fees. So you're basically, this is really your cost. It's not the $25 that the factory quoted you. It's your real cost is closer to $39 if you bring them by sea. If you decide to bring these by air, you can see it jacks it way the heck up. So in this case, this is a product you really probably want to try to avoid bringing by air. If these two are close to each other, you might consider it by air. Or if you're just in a big rush, then you might need to do it by air. But typically sea is about 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, depending on where it's going and which way, which coast of the U.S. And air is usually 3 to 7 days in most cases, unless there's a pandemic going on, and then it can be actually slower than sea. All right, the next column down here we're going to go to is Amazon fees. Everything, again, is pre-populated for you. It's going to figure out exactly which size based on the dimensions you entered, which category it's going to go in on Amazon, and it's going to pull in the fees. It's going to use this small oversize from this fee section, and you can see here's the different tiers here. So small oversize is right here, and you're 70 pounds or less. and it's got for each pound what it's going to cost, and it figures it all up for you. So it's a base of $8.26 and then 38 cents a pound and so on. So back over here you can see that this guy, based on its dimensions and its weight, is going to cost you $18.22 for Amazon to pick this, ship it out to the customer and everything. This is a heavy item. The referral fee is Amazon's commission. We have 15% here. In some categories this is lower. This is 10 or 8% in some categories. Most categories are 15, so we have it default by 15. If you're in a category that's lower, then you're going to have a better margins than this. So, but let's go with the worst case scenario at 15%. There are times where it's 20% if you're in certain Amazon programs, but for most people, the vast majority, it's going to be 15%. You're going to have storage charges at Amazon to keep this in the warehouse. So when it's not Q4, they're going to charge you $1.46. But when it is Q4, they jack this up because Amazon doesn't want to become a warehouse. They want to become a fulfillment center, so they don't like you storing all your products there. They rather you store it somewhere else and send it to them just before they need it. So they charge you a premium. So these are all calculated automatically for you from this fees section based on the data that we entered on those first couple sheets. So our total FBA fees for this particular item are $36.82. So that's what Amazon's going to take out of the money. So if we were charging $90, I think is what the price we were saying, $90, they're going to take $36.82 of our $90. So when they pay us, they're only going to pay us basically $90 minus $37, or they're going to pay us about $43. Is what they're going to. Yeah, less any other fees. That they always have some other little fees. We'll talk about those in another module, but there might be a few other fees. But you're going to get $43 out of that 90, basically, as a rough estimate. If we come over here to our margins, we can see here that our total product cost per unit is $82. Once we factor on Amazon's fees and what we're having to pay the factory and the duties and the taxes. And you can see here our gross profit per unit, our gross margin is only $7.08 in this example. This is not very good for this expensive product. Our profit percentage is only 8%. That's really not good. You really want to get that in the 20 to 30% range if at all possible. The ROI is really low. I like to see this a lot higher, 100% or better. There's times when you can do things that are under 100%, but I like to find things. Sometimes people say, I can't find anything that's a 100% ROI. You can, and you just got to look. But the ROI in this case is 9%. Now you'll notice that this is going to be different than you may go look at like the Helium 10 profitability calculator, and you're like, why does Kevin's spreadsheet here and Freedom Ticket say 9% and that one says 26%? It's because we're taking in more consideration here. Those are quick and easy approximations. We're getting into the weeds a little bit more here and factoring in some additional cost. So that's why we have this here. And our profit and loss per order is $13,600. If all these numbers hold true, and our total profit per year would only be $15,689. And you're like, wait a second, Kevin. I thought you said earlier we said 4 inventory turns. If we're making $13,600 on each one, shouldn't this be $13,600 times 4? Or in the $50,000? Why is it only $15,000? It's because, look at this one right here. This is our first order. This is on future orders. This is like ongoing. This first bit's like the ongoing, the long term. This is the first order where we added all the extra setup costs. Because what if we never get to this second order? What if this just never happens? We get bad reviews, or we decide we don't like selling on Amazon, or we want to pivot and not sell cornhole games anymore. We want to sell makeup or something. You need to know where you're going to be at if this is your one and only. So in this particular case, this first order, you can see we're going in the hole. And I know in most of my products that I launch, I don't make money on the first order. It's not till the second order that I usually start to actually make positive money, because there's so many upfront costs. You got to do launching, giveaways, all your trademarks and logos, and all the setup fees. So we're technically, if we never reorder this product, we lose an almost 25 grand. So we have to factor that in here. These are not good numbers. These are numbers that I would not look do this product. There's just not enough room here at these prices. But that's where this next tab, long-term bottom line analysis, comes in, because it's going to break it down for us. And so we can see here on this one, if we want to get a 20% profit margin, remember over there we had, what was it, about 8%? Here, if we want to get to 20% profit margin, we're going to need to sell this for, instead of $89.99, we said over here, our target price, $89.99, and right here, we're going to need to be able to sell this for $103.64 to get to 20% profit margin. Maybe you can do that. Maybe like if you bundle something with this, or maybe if you like take a look at the pricing and decide, you know what, since this is wood, everybody else is plastic, we got some better bean bags, maybe I can sell it for that. It just gives you an idea, and so you have to go back and take a look, can I sell it for that and still meet this? In Freedom Ticket Extra, which is the extra training that I do every month for Freedom Ticket members, it's an extra fee, but I do a live Q&A. There should be a link somewhere around here for Freedom Ticket Extra. And every week I do a live Q&A for a couple hours with the students, where you can ask directly to me questions. And once a month I bring in somebody who's an expert in a very specific topic. Could be PPC, could be launching, it could be hiring VAs, a whole variety of stuff, getting into retail stores, things that we don't cover in the normal Freedom Ticket, we go over in Freedom Ticket Extra. Well, if you're a member of Freedom Ticket Extra and you go back and look at April of 2020, Freedom Ticket Extra, you'll see a presentation by Paulina who's talking about pricing. And she basically goes through it's a very, very good, detailed top presentation. Everybody loved it, on how to pick what price you're going to go after. Should you go after the people who want the cheapest price? Should you go after the people who want a mid-range price? Or should you go after the people on Amazon who will pay the highest price? And so you could take her information and combine it here and come up with some cool ideas to try to get to this. So if your target selling price, if you want to get 100% ROI, which is what I normally recommend, you'd have to go all the way up to $165. I don't know, you're going to have to put some gold or something on this thing somehow to justify that. Your landing cost to get 100% ROI based on this current, so remember, based on the current numbers, would be basically $20. Well, the factory cost was $25 alone, plus the duties, plus the shipping. So you would have to go find one of these that's not made of wood. You can okay, now I know what I need to do. I really want to sell cornhole games. Let me go find one made of plastic that I can get for $10. And by the time you add all the shipping and all the fees and everything, this will change. So I mean, if you come back over here to product info and change this to $10, you can see if I now my landed cost is now to get to 100% ROI is $21.23, and now I can sell this at $83.58. So that's below my $89.99 price. So now you can use the reverse engineering and go, okay, let me see if I can find something that's maybe $10, or maybe I can go up to $12. See, yeah, we're still not quite there. So you can come back over here. Let's go to $13. Keeping everything else the same. Now we're getting pretty close. So now you know, okay, I can't pay $25. I need to find a supplier that can make these for me for $13, or not do them out of wood, do them out of a chipboard or whatever it is. But this gives you targets, so you know where you got to be, and you're not just shooting in the dark like most people are. That's the value of this spreadsheet if you really dig into it. Here's some numbers for 30% profit margins. If that's your goal, you're gonna have to get up to $100. Your target selling price, if you want to get 150% ROI, and your landed cost, what it needs to be to achieve those. So you can play with these numbers and you can see where they'll take you. So that's what this is here for. Based on what we have in here right now, total number of units we should order from the factory is 1921. Now remember, I think we were saying 17 per day. Yeah, 17 per day. So that's going to be factoring a 3-month supply. It's going to add a little bit of a cushion for you And it's also going to add in the giveaways in there that you have to do, which are not really, they're actual sales, but they kind of don't count. They're part of what you have to do to launch. It's going to recommend that your minimum capital based on C shipment. So in this particular case, you're going to need about 100 grand based on the data we have in here right now. I think we originally had this at 25. So put that back to 25. You're going to need about $175,000. And you're like, wait a second, Kevin, this doesn't make sense. If I'm ordering, let's call this 2,000 units from the factory, and you don't have to order exactly 1921. You could raise it up to 2,000. Maybe you're going to do 1,900. But this just gives you the rough idea. You could bump this a little if you wanted to. But if I'm going to order, let's say, 2,000 units, and they were $25 a piece, well, 2,000 times 25 is, what's that, 50,000? So why the heck, Kevin, do I need $174,000? Are you out of your mind? This doesn't make sense. Nobody else really teaches this. But what you need is, remember I said you need ideally 2.5 times your initial inventory cost. So 2.5 times 50,000 is 125, and then we're adding in here, we have all of our trademarks, we have our setup cost, we have our giveaways, we have our PPC. This is what I recommend you have. Now, this is ideal. A lot of people aren't going to reach this. So here's the minimum. So you really need to get about 136. Can you do this if you only have 100 grand? You might be able to. That's a decision that you'll have to make. But this is where I would want to be. Make sure I either have this in my pocket or I have access to it. I have a rich uncle or a bank line of credit or some other way that if I need it, maybe I've only got 70 grand right now and I'm going to roll the dice and give this a shot. Yeah, but I know that I may need to make this really work and be successful. I might need another $56,000 or $66,000. I have a way to get it in an emergency. This is kind of where you need to be. And the reason you need this is, remember, when you start selling this, you're having to pay everything up front to the factory, all the cost up front. You got to wait for it to come by sea. You got to pay all the duties to get it in. You got to pay to do your launch and the giveaways. You're losing money on that stuff. You got to run some ads. You're probably losing a little bit of money on that in the beginning. And then once you start selling, Amazon's not going to pay you right away. They typically pay you every 2 weeks, and there's usually a delay in the 2 weeks. There's usually another week to 2 delay on top of that. So you're really not going to see much money, start seeing much money for probably a month or so after you take your first sale. Well, if your sales are going well and you're meeting or beating your 17 per day estimates we made here, you're going to have to call up that factory and say, guys, fire up the presses. I need more, because remember, you don't want to run out of stock. And remember, it took them a month to make it, another month to be on the sea. So in month 2, you're already spending money again. And so that's why you're going to have to come out of pocket again. Now, eventually, some of the money will start coming in from Amazon, and you can start using some of your sales and reinvesting it, and maybe cut this down a little bit, especially if you grow fast. But this just gives you a rough estimate. And like, again, if you don't have 136, it doesn't mean you can't do this, but you need to be prepared that you might need to have access to up to this much. This is your deposit to the factory. Most factories want 30% deposit. So this is your deposit you have to give them when you place your order. And this is the balance of the cash you need. And you're like, wait a second, Kevin, this doesn't make sense. If that's 30%, 70% is what I got to pay to the factory. Why the heck is this number so freaking high? That's because this number includes the 70% added to the factory that you got to pay the factory, includes your duties, it includes your shipping cost, it includes your launch cost, and it includes part of the second order. So you don't have to come out of the 114,000. You're not having to pay that all out of pocket at one time. But this is your future money that you're going to need to be prepared to spend and potentially have available to you. So that's how this spreadsheet works. We went over this earlier. That's some of the. So hopefully this has given you a good idea. You remember, this is not proper accounting spreadsheet. This is just for you to do estimates with. And these numbers can change, but you can go in here and adjust the numbers, change them, and get ideas of where you can maybe make some changes to make this product work. Or maybe you're like, you know what, this product just is not going to work. and I'm going to have to go move on and find something else. So I hope you've enjoyed this module, and I look forward to seeing you in the next module.